This question is asking us to graph y equals x squared minus 2x. And we know, because the biggest power of x is 2, that this is going to be a parabola. It's a quadratic function, which means the graph is a parabola. And the most important thing about a parabola's graph is the vertex. So we need to figure out the vertex. Now remember, the vertex is the x coordinates given by x equals negative b over 2a. And I'll go ahead and remind everyone the formula where a and b come from. It's y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. A is the number multiplying the x squared, and b is the number multiplying the x. So for our problem here, what's multiplying x squared is 1. We have a equals 1. And b, the number multiplying by x, is negative 2. And don't forget that negative. It's very important. Okay, so when we go ahead and plug that in, b is negative 2. We have, don't forget the minus sign up front. We got negative 2 over 2 times a, which is 1. The negative make a positive, so we got 2 over 2, which equals 1. All right, so that is the x coordinate of the vertex. And in order to plot the vertex, because we are trying to graph this, we also need the y coordinate. And since we know the y coordinate, x coordinate of the vertex, to get the y coordinate, we just plug the x coordinate in. So we got to plug in x equals negative, or sorry, not negative 1, x equals positive 1. We get y equals 1 squared minus 2 times 1. And 1 squared is 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Right, so the vertex is at the point 1 comma negative 1. And even though I'm not actually using the graphing thing here, I'll explain that in a second. I'm going to plot the vertex. So x is 1, y is negative 1. I like to just label it, for me, if I'm doing it by hand, with a V to symbolize that it's the vertex. Now when you're using the graphing tool, you want to select this because this is the parabola. It doesn't matter if it's upside down or right side up. And in order to make the parabola, we first plot the vertex. So you would plot that point, then plot any other point that is not the vertex. It really doesn't matter what you pick, just make sure you plug in any x value that's not 1, because that's already the vertex. Like I could plug in 0 for x because that's not being used. I could plug in 2 for x, 3 for x. You can't go too big because then it won't fit. So just pick something very close. So I'm just going to use x equals 0 because that's the easiest thing to do. But if your vertex is at x equals 0, then you can't use 0. So we got y equals 0 squared minus 2 times 0, which is 0 itself. So the other point we're going to plot is x is 0 and y is 0, which is our origin. Now, as long as you have this tool selected, if you graph this first, the vertex, and then you graph the other point second, it will make the vertex shape for you. Now I'll draw a brief sketch, but I'm obviously freehanding this, so I can't do it perfectly. It'll look something like this when you graph it, but it will make the graph for you. All right, what you got to do is understand what's going on here. There is more in this section that you'll talk about. The parabola is centered around the vertex, meaning if you kind of cut it right here, it's going to look the same on the left and the right. That is how we use the graphing tool.